Let's keep reading the Bible. Sabbath for rest. So the heavens and earth were completed along with their entire array. God completed on the seventh day his work that he made, and he ceased on the seventh day from all his work that he made. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, for on it he ceased from all his work that God created for the purpose of preparing. So this is basically a promise that eventually the labor is gonna end, and we get to enjoy the things that we did. That's something that is in scripture actually. It says that all their deeds followed them. Humanity in Gan Eden. These are the genealogical records of the heavens and earth when they were created, at the time when Adonai Elohim made land and sky. Now no shrub of the field was in the land yet, and no green plants of the field had sprouted yet. For Adonai Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the land, and there was no one to work the ground. If you notice, it takes time for things to grow. It's that way with people as well, so we need to be patient. But a mist came up from the land and watered the whole surface of the ground. I think that's the best way to read Genesis, by the way. Like, you find a way to apply it to yourself that's true, and then you actually believe it. You can't fake it till you make it. It just means that you never did make it. Then Adonai Elohim formed the man out of the dust from the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils a breath of life. So the man became a living being. A living being, a soul. That's basically what a soul is. It's the entire living being. You have your spirit, you have your body, you're alive, you're conscious, you have a mind, you feel things. Spirit of life, the breath of life that was given to us, was also given to animals. I've said that maybe a lesser amount of it, and that's a decent way to think about it. But anything that's alive, that life comes from God and His Spirit, His power. Then Adonai Elohim planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. A lot of this stuff is like very interesting to think about. Like Eden, the paradise. It's almost something that's like asking for you to imagine things. You know, maybe dream about them as well. But the truth is that nobody can imagine what it's like, but maybe we can know what it's like. That's what I believe anyway. And there he put the man whom he had formed. Yeah. Then Adonai Elohim caused to sprout from the ground every tree that was desirable to look at and good for food. Now the tree of life was in the middle of the garden, and also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. These trees, especially the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the way I think about them is that there are still fruits on it. So this isn't just something that happened in the past. We can, in our life, today and tomorrow, pick fruits from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and eat them. After the fall, after we already ate from it, why couldn't we eat anymore? That's how I think about it. Like, it's okay now pretty much, because we're already going to die. The disobedience already happened. So now we can use the tree of knowledge of good and evil to wisen up. I also believe that the world will know what is evil before it knows what is good. But this is something that you can think about personally. The tree of life that has something to do with the great mystery that Paul wrote about, and that's between a man and a woman. That's the fruit of life, I think. Yeah. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became 4 riverheads. The name of the first is Pishon, the one that winds around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Bdellium and lapis lazuli stones are also there. Everybody knows that from Minecraft. The name of the second river is Gihon. It winds around the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Tigris. It runs east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. Then Adonai Elohim took the man and gave him rest in the Garden of Eden in order to cultivate and watch over it. About the rivers, they are like spiritual nourishment that comes from paradise. And in the last days they are cut, and that's why everything is like a wilderness. It's dried in a spiritual sense. And people practice instead lawlessness, you know. Seeking after their lusts, for example. Like that's something that's desirable, to cause attraction to happen in other people for you, and for you to have attraction to them. And you know, greed and power and things like this. This is about the excitement of life in the world. It's that way because people are not concerned with heavenly things, with things that exist in paradise. So they don't actually get the spiritual nourishment. These rivers dry up during the last days, and that's pretty much happened already. It's also written that people will escape into like stories and myths. So that's like what movies and video games and storybooks are all about. People want to escape from what is into what isn't. And then man is given the job of cultivating and watching over the garden. So we have our job. Man is basically a glorified gardener. And that's a lovely thing if you like gardens. And you should, because this is a very special garden. With the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and tree of life, and love and companionship, and everybody's running around naked. Things like that. But maybe for some people it's a humbling thing to think of yourself as a gardener. But that's what we are before God. Originally, anyway. Okay, and then Adonai Elohim commanded the man, saying, "From all the trees of garden you are most welcome to eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you must not eat. From when you eat from it, you most assuredly will die." Then Adonai Elohim said, "It's not good for the man to be alone. Let me make a well-matched helper for him." The tree of knowledge of good and evil, I don't know if it's fruitless to think about, you know, what would have happened if men never started to decide things for themselves, because obviously that's what we have decided to do. But we know that there must have been a time when man and woman became sufficiently developed in creation that there was an Adam and there was somebody who was like Eve. And if we keep reading the story, it was actually the woman who decided to start to make their own mind up. They were being misled. I wonder what that was like for them. Then Adonai Elohim said, "It's not good for the man to be alone. Let me make a well-matched helper for him." This is also kind of interesting because it says it's not good for the man to be alone. It doesn't say that about women. Maybe women are more capable of existing without men. Maybe that's why there's nuns. They give themselves over to Christ. Maybe it's not entirely bad for a woman to be alone in this way. Maybe they are more self-sufficient in that sense. But for men, For man, it's not good to be alone. We either have to devote ourselves to something or someone, and it shouldn't be yourself. So God made a well-matched helper for him. Adonai Elohim had formed from the ground every animal of the field and every flying creature of the sky, so he brought them to the man to see what he would call them. Whatever the man called them, each living creature, that was its name. This is also very interesting. This is prophetic as far as I'm concerned. It's man giving names to animals. And when the second coming happens, that's something that might happen again, because the people who receive the mark of the beast, they kind of lose their name. And they might need to be renamed again in some significant, meaningful way. Like when Christ named Simon Peter, the rock, onto which the true community of Christ will be built. But also, they think that the gates of hell will not overcome. So there's like this important thing that you can do as a man to animals. He can of course do it to men also, because he is the Son of God. He's God himself, so God in the flesh. So the man gave names to all of the livestock, and to the flying creatures of the sky, and to all the animals of the field, but for the man he did not find a well-matched helper for him. Adonai Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Adonai Elohim built the rib which he had taken from the man into a woman, then he brought her to the man. And the man said, "This one at last is bone of my bones and flesh of from my flesh. This one is called woman, for from man was taken this one. This is why a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh." This is a super important part in scripture, because it's basically telling you how to be healthy. That you're supposed to leave your mother, and you're not supposed to think about these things in the dumbest way, that you're supposed to be born from a woman and then you leave the woman. No, it means like in a spiritual sense as well. Like there are grown men who never leave their mothers. They never do this thing where you are clinging to a wife. They're like your safe harbor. That's one of the ways is written in scripture about women that are precious. They're like a safe space. They're safety. They're like a home. Home is where the hearth is, or whatever the sayings are. No, it's where the wife is actually. And you have to leave your mom to do it. You basically, in a kind of spiritual sense, cut them out of your life, and then you just fulfill the commandment which is about respecting them. Basically respecting where you came from. This isn't happening a lot in the world, and that's why there's so many problems. There's no, like, the marriage between a man and woman is like fundamental to anything that men ever create. If there's trouble there, then that trouble will be reflected in everything that we do in the world. And another thing that's important is to notice that the woman came from the man, so that means that the thing that binds you together to your partner, it should be something that is like bone deep, something that doesn't break, like the bones of Christ were never broken. Whatever this woman is made of, it has to come from you, and that's the thing that stays with you. Like you take that thing to the grave. And that's an interesting way of thinking about finding and looking for partners, right? This deeper connection. It's not just, a Tinder algorithm matched you and you swiped left or right. I don't know which is this. It's something that is really unifying you and your home forever. It's the kind of thing that you have that if you break, it's like a kind of suicide. So you'll never break it. Now both of them were naked, and the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Yeah. And that's also another way to think about a holy marriage. You're constantly naked with each other. Because you know who they are, you know what they're about, what they're doing constantly. You're the same being. You're like a unit. You are in each other's minds and hearts and bodies. You're sharing everything. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to like whisper. Like that's something that I think people do in partnerships where it's not proper. Like you have to tell somebody something. Like the world talks about communication problems and things like that. I don't think these exist in a holy marriage. I think it's almost like being part of the Borg, but it's just the two of you. It's like being part of one cult that's in the light of God, that's accepted. This is a really important part of scripture. Genesis page 2. Yeah, let's continue next time.